He is a former prosecutor of the military commissions, and he, at every chance possible, speaks the truth about what they represent. Colonel Dees.
Well, I really appreciate you coming out. Many faces I remember from last year when we were on the other side of the White House. And I'd hoped when we came back this year we'd be having a historical look back celebrating the closing of Guantánamo, rather than it being an ongoing chapter in our history. Sorry, Zeke. You know, it's been interesting. If you live here in Washington for the last couple of months, there's been this debate about the fiscal cliff. You know, the folks behind us and down the mall have debated about what to do to try to close the fiscal deficit. A good place to start is the $139 million a year that's wasted on Guantánamo Bay.
Amen.
If you look at the figures, I mean, you always hear about the fiscal conservatives and cutting out government waste. And we used to have the Golden Fleece Award that William Proxmire gave for wasteful government spending. Well, certainly a likely candidate is the detention facility at Guantánamo Bay. There are 166 men there at a cost of $139 million a year. Half of them we don't want. They're people that we said we want to transfer out. If you do the math, we're spending about $850,000 per man per year to keep them at Guantánamo.
Wow.
So just from a practical perspective, federal prison here costs $30,000 a year. So we're paying 28 times more to keep people at Guantánamo than if we closed it. We can also help close not just our fiscal deficit, but our moral and legal deficit too. You know, for 200 years, what made us unique, and when we talk about American exceptionalism, it was our belief in the law. And then after 9/11, we turned our back on the law, and we chose Guantánamo because we thought it was outside the reach of the law. We got to turn back to our strength. Do you recall in 2009, President Obama gave a talk at the National Archives, not far from here? And when he did, he said all the right words. He said, all too often, talking about the Bush policies, all too often our government made decisions based on fear rather than foresight. All too often our government trimmed the facts and the evidence to fit ideological predispositions. Instead of strategically applying our power and our principles, too often we set those principles aside as luxuries that we could no longer afford. And during this season of fear, too many of us, Democrats, Republicans, politicians, journalists, and citizens, fell silent. In other words, we went off course. That was in 2009. It's 2013, and Guantánamo is still open. Too many people have fallen silent. We expected leadership when President Obama took office, not a spine like Gumby that we've seen on him standing up to torture in Guantánamo and restoring our reputation. So I'm encouraged that you're out here on another cold, dreary January the 11th. I hope it's not necessary to come back next year, that President Obama in the second term will keep the promise he made in 2008, when we were all so excited to see the Bush era end and President Obama take office. I'd like to ask you to do one more thing. You know, there's an international symbol of distress. And if you turn the flag upside down and always wear a, I served in the Air Force for 25 years because I believe in our country and the Constitution and the principles that it was founded on. And I believe in our flag. A symbol of distress is turning the flag upside down. I'd ask you to join me on January 25th when I turn mine upside down as a symbol that our country is in distress. Because that's the day that John Kiriakou goes to prison for talking about torture, while not a single person has ever been prosecuted for engaging in torture. What does that say about our country when your words get you sent to prison, but engaging in torture you're treated as a hero? So to me, that's a country in distress. So on January 25th, it's time to fly the flag upside down and let people know that those aren't American values when you try to shut up people for talking and you let torturers walk.